Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. Uh, a little after 6, Monday evening, excuse me. And we'll go ahead and get started. And we will start with questions or comments. If anyone has any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In the Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptation. And I know Reverend Richards dealt with that Lord's Prayer many times, but it kind of stuck out to me last week. Lead us not into temptation. Is that saying that Jesus we're asking him not to lead us into temptation? Does I know he don't lead us into temptation. We always say temptation is of we say the devil, but we know that temptation is not of God. So explain that to me a little further if you can.
Okay, Pastor, are you on? Pastor, are you on? Are you on mute?
Yeah, I am. Give me a second. I need to listen to that. Look at that myself, okay? I need to read it together.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. And I don't know if Sheldon is on as well, because Sheldon did an in-depth look at that as well. If he may have some insight on if he's logged in.
Okay.
Okay. Kathy, we're gonna come back to you. Okay. If there anyone else any other questions while we kind of dig and research a little bit on Kathy's questions? Anyone else? I think the weekend was awesome, and it took us to a place that was new to us, but very comfortable. And I love opportunities and times for reflections. So we talked about Enoch and how he left the earth and he was no more. And Pastor asked the question, how would we feel in that position? Would we be ready to do to leave with God like that in that manner? As well as we understand that manner anyway. But so that kind of took us on a inward journey, kind of looking at who we are and some evaluating there, and whether looking at family, not just internally that turn to external, looking at family and children, and so that was interesting conversation. We also on yesterday talked about our commitment. Where are we, and any obstacles or anything that are in our way? How much of this do we want? How much awareness? How much of the Creator do we want to see? Where are we? So again, that was a time to explore and see where you were individually and I suppose even collectively. It kind of kind of showed us a few things as to where we are as a group, and it kind of brought the whole journey into focus to me, looking at where we've been and the direction we're going, and even the journey itself, how far we've come or not come for that matter. But anyway, I don't want to leave that too fast. If there anybody, is there anybody who has any other reflections on that, or questions and or comments on those two things, Saturday and Sunday's lessons? Okay. Is there anyone that may have had a chance to look at what Kathy asked? Are we ready to address that? Take a look at it.
Yeah. While we were waiting on Pastor, I was going back. I had a problem locating the text. Hi, everyone. This is Sheldon. But from the original Aramaic, let me get back to where I was. What that little part is actually talking about directly from the Aramaic. We're familiar with "lead us not into temptation." Can actually be translated more like "don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back." So this temptation is not at all, saying, Jesus, don't lead us into temptation. Don't lead us into something bad. And like I said, that just came from poor translation. Going further into that, and I'm just going to read that little area. This is actually coming from, this comes from Prayers of the Cosmos, Meditations of the Aramaic Words of Jesus. And just to give a little background right quick, much of the New Testament, well, not much of it, all the New Testament has been translated many different times. And a lot of times with those translations, sometimes on purpose and sometimes not on purpose, if the person doesn't have a true understanding of what is actually being said or trying to be communicated, then of course in their translating it, they're not going to be able to translate that properly as well. This prayer is not actually really talking about things to do and not to do outwardly. The entire prayer is talking about things internal that is more so akin to our hearts or how we go about living our lives and the things that we do. That being the emphasis on, for lack of better words, that thing that is driving us, for us being familiar and acclimated with that and starting off from that particular standpoint. So I say all of that, and now I'm about to read the commentary on that part. So again, the King James Version, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And there's a lot more background for this, but going into the commentary, don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back, and what holds us back from our true purpose. Don't let us enter forgetfulness, the temptation of false appearances, to the fraud of inner vacillation, like a flag tossed in the wind, alert us. But break the hold of unrightness, the inner stagnation that prevents good fruit. From the evil of injustice, the green fruit and the right, and grant us liberty. Deceive neither by the outer nor the inner. Free us to walk your path with joy. Keep us from hoarding false wealth and from the inner shame of help not given in time. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back. And then it just goes on. These are probably the least understood, and because of the Greek version, the most mistranslated lines in the prayer. In the Aramaic version, no one outside, quote unquote, leads us into temptation, least of all God. Portion of it, Wella Talan, could be translated, don't let us enter. Don't let us be seduced by the appearance of, or don't let us heap up what's false or illusory in. Nasuuna could be, this is all part of that portion of the prayer, could be translated as temptation, in the Aramaic sense of something that leads to inner vacillation or agitation, diverting us from the purpose of our lives. The old roots call up the picture of a flag waving in the wind, blown here and there, like a mind rendered uncertain by the seductions of materialism, including spiritual materialism. Spiritual materialism being what we mentioned sometime this weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, the idea of doing it for what it is that we do, or this happens in church all the time, doing it for some outward appearance or because you want to be accepted or anything like that. Basically, spiritualism that is not completely genuine from the heart. Going on. It is the picture of forgetfulness, a losing of oneself in appearances, a failure to look deeper when the situation calls for it. Having involved ourselves in the work of justice, bread, and compassion, forgiveness, in the preceding lines, we come again to see our limitations as well as all the pain and suffering that we cause ourselves in the rest of creation. The prayer here reminds us not to forget our origins in creation and the divine breath, nor to burn out over all the needs to be done. This line goes together with the next to push us towards a new breakthrough into joy. Kathy, much of what lead us not into temptation is talking about, and we talk about it here all the time. It is, in a sense, being open and having a clear mind and not being bogged down by distractions that actually affect us. And is also that reminder is when we even find that is taking place, because it does take place, of course. It is empowering to us to let us immediately or to be mindful of it and take control in a sense and get back on track. Not to beat ourselves up or anything like that, but in a sense to breathe, ground ourselves, remind ourselves who and what we are, and to remind ourselves of what is important, remind us of basically when something is a distraction. So it's a reminder to us, but it's also a reminder to us to remind ourselves. I'm done.
Michelle, this is Barbara. I also like in the prayer what goes before that lead us not into temptation, because it speaks of there's something for us to be doing. It talks about O Bertha, Father, Mother of the Cosmos, and then it talks about create your reign of unity now. Unity means that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing as Elohim, to become one with the Father and the Father with me, or one with the Creator and the Creator with me. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight. In other words, we have the responsibility as Elohim to be fed not only physically, but that inner spiritual bread. And in order to make this entire prayer come to life in us, we have to take part in all of this as our part as Elohim. And so it says, grant what we need each day in bread and insight. Loose the cords of mistakes binding us, that forgive us. But it also says, as we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. And so it's a play. It's like a dance. I'm doing my part, and the one who is one with me is doing its part. And it's difficult for me to have those entanglements and those cords of mistakes that I've made that have bound me. It's difficult to have them loose if I'm holding tight the cords and entanglements against someone else. I gotta let that go as well in order to have it released in me. And so then you get to the don't let surface things delude us, meaning, okay, if I'm not holding on to something tightly against someone else, and if I am yearning and basking and living and staying in unity with the Creator, then whatever I see. It's like X was talking about eighth sense and all of that. Things like that, intuition, all of that comes into play for me, so that I can anticipate what things are coming. I can discern what someone is saying truthfully, and I cannot allow any of those things then to delude me. Surface things speaks of things that are sort of on top, and so with this insightfulness as Elohim, I can see with my eye those things that would tempt me or delude me or try to delude me, try to pull me off track, free us from what holds us back. So it's like a dance. It's a play between. It's a dance between the Creator and I as one. And so I just wanted to add that a little bit too, because the first part of it resonates so much with me as well.
Thank you. They absolutely do go hand in hand.
Okay. I think Barbara and Sheldon, you guys have pretty much dealt with it. However, let me add, if I may. When we're looking at it, the temptation. I was actually looking for my notes. I made some on that and couldn't find them. When it says, "I do not lead us into temptation," as Sheldon was reading, it speaks of us not being seduced by what appears to be right. That includes those translations of the Bible studies, the things that we have been taught that the Bible is saying, the things that are offered to us in order to get us off track. We are not to be seduced by the appearance of those things, rather, that appear to be right. And the latter part of that speaks to the idea of being delivered from evil. That whole idea is speaking to unrightness. Deliverance comes through reminding us of what the scriptures are saying in regards to becoming unripened. So if we put those together, what I'm seeing also in relationship to what Barbara and Sheldon have said is help us to recognize what is not, help us to recognize what appears to be right for what it really is, as opposed to allowing us to get caught up in it. And when I see it that way, what I'm actually seeing is this being said, let us see the religious antics, let us see the translations, let us see the preaching and the teaching in religion for what it really is, without getting caught up in it. And in doing so, that delivers us from unrightness. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, I know a lot has been said, but all of it ties together into what all three of us have said. I'm hoping that we can see that this is not a prayer to be uttered as a recitation. It is simply directions for meditation. And the things that we meditate on should be those things that are true and real, as opposed to those things that make us feel good, that sound right, but we know it's not right. So I do believe that in order to get the full gist of it, we have to insert the reality of meditation as opposed to prayer, because we have been so tightly bound to the mistranslation of that word, Selah, that should have been prayer. It should have been meditation, or should have been as opposed to being that prayer that we call it, the meditation. I'm sorry, the multiplying of words is what we do for prayer, and Jesus told us we are not supposed to do that, and he said that prior to giving these instructions on meditation. Don't be like what's that, the hypocrite that in public thinks that he's praying because of the multiplication of words. That's what we are currently doing in religious settings. Ron?
Yes, sir. Were you done? I couldn't tell if you I had lost you or you were
No,
done, Pastor.
I said I'm done.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. I was looking at something anyway. Miss Kathy, very good question. Where are you? Does that help?
Yes, it did. Thank all of y'all.
Yes, ma'am. Now, did anyone else have any further comments or questions on what Sheldon and Miss Barbara and Pastor have said? Is that clear to you?
Ready as yours.
It is clear.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything else? As I mentioned earlier, what we've covered on the last couple of days to me has been very not important in the right word. It's been an eye opener and very refreshing. And we can always visit it again, of course. If there is anyone who has any questions or comments in that direction, please feel free. Okay. The last time yes, sir.
Right before you go, meant to catch you before you pivoted. I was just going to add one last thing.
Yes,
what
sir.
you said from Pastor and Barbara to show that connection about that bind. And literally any and everything that we've done throughout our entire physical lives, no matter what it has been, has an effect on us in terms of us guiding. I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Any interaction that we have with what seems like the world, another individual, literally day to day, whatever, every single moment, no matter what we're doing, we're interacting or affecting ourselves at the same time, more so than we are consciously aware of it. I can't. Mark Twain. Mark Twain had this quote that interested me, and the quote went. I'm just going to paraphrase. Went something like, "To harbor basically anger and animosity and stuff in yourself for another individual is like acid being held in a cup, and that acid does far more damage to that cup, in a sense, than whatever it is that it actually is poured on. So in the manner or the heart that we actually do anything in life, at any given moment, we're having an effect on ourselves as well, whether we are binding ourselves in a sense or loosening ourselves in a sense. And I started off only with the acid thing so that there could be a visual associated with it to be understood. However, as we talk about loosening, and as Barbara was talking about the verses before, lead us not into temptation, the same thing happens in terms of us spreading love and joy and care and things like that. But as we spread those things, or as we walk in the life or any particular moment that we are doing that, we're also doing the same thing to ourselves. We're also loving our bodies and our life in a general, excuse me, in a sense. So it's as if we are then energizing our life with the same exact thing, and we're literally experiencing that. In order to be extremely angry or to do something that may come from a hateful place at the moment, or hatred, we actually have to experience hatred within the inside of ourselves. The same thing, like I was saying, for the joy and the love and the prosperity and all those other things that were mentioned also in that particular Lord's meditation. That's it. I'm done.
One of the things I thought about when you were speaking, I was reading about the dance that Barbara mentioned, the dance, and you did too, with the dance of light and darkness, and it also talked about the relationship with heaven and earth, that one being form and the other being vibration, and they play off of each other. And if what you're saying, that those actions, we are not only just affecting us, you affect those vibrations in the universe. The loosening of the binding is extremely real, as we know. And so all these terms that we've become intimate with now, and kind of take them to heart and moving in that direction, we see how real that is. We see what we're creating. And as you said, if what you focus on, whether it be hatred or love, that's what affects you, not only inwardly but outwardly, because it's going to bubble over. It's going to come out. It's going to be manifested in a way that it affects others. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I also I always feel like at a footnote that I always need to say this. By no means are we saying that someone should just walk around being jolly-go-lucky, and if they are not, then they are evil and not of God. By no means are we saying that. We are simply bringing that to our attention and allowing those emotions and feelings that we may have to be there, and then for us to explore them further and find out, figure out why are they there. And then when it comes to the part about the temptation not being diluted, it means actually replacing that belief or coming into an understanding of who you and what you are, and not letting some little small thing distracting you, and then actually realizing that that small thing is not actually a big deal, so to speak. Or, for example, you are mightier than that, whatever that trivial small thing is. It does not mean completely ignoring anything that happens to you and in a sense lying to yourself. That's not what we're talking about here. I want to add that a little more. For whomever may be listening in for the first time.
Okay. Anyone else, please? Questions or comments? Thank you, Sheldon. Anyone else?
Yes.
Okay.
in order to experience what Sheldon was relaying to us, there has to be a commitment to the understanding of what the instructions that Jesus gave us as it pertains to this meditation in Matthew 6. And the reason I say that is because we have been so indoctrinated with something differently when it comes to these instructions, to the extent that we still repeat it without giving thought to what is actually being said, rather, I'm sorry. And then on top of that, we don't allow the power and the light of it to penetrate us, because repeating it is simply something that we do without thought, or when we hear it, the same thing. Application of it has to be made when we're doing our periods of meditation. The understandings that this is designed to open us up, to speak to our inner and outer being. Because Jesus said, when you do this, you go into your closet. And this is not talking about your closet in your house where your clothes are. It's talking about inside of yourself, your innermost being, which means that you are to shut everything else out. Anything in the world outside of you is to be shut down, so that the focus can be internal in terms of what's being said here. I think it would be great if we were to, at some point, line by line, write what it means in a simplified manner, so that it will be recorded. And if you choose to, you can hear it enough so that it will penetrate your soul, and you don't have to look at it in order to follow through with your internal meditations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I want to revisit something, if I may, and it's right along the same lines that we've been talking right now. Some of the same things, rather. You're gonna probably hear me repeat, or I'll ask you guys to repeat them. I made a effort to show us how the Beatitudes are connected to creation. Creation being a spiritual journey of who we are, who we actually are from the soulfulness that we are, rather than seeing this as a worldly, physical manifestation. This is an inside-out kind of transformation that it talks about. And I read a couple of verses from the Beatitudes that I specifically picked out for a purpose. I looked at Matthew 5:43 and 44 says, you have heard that it was said, this is Jesus talking, this is in the Beatitudes, y'all. Matthew 5:43 and 44 is what I'm going to read. You have heard that it was said that you shall love your neighbors and hate your enemies. But I say unto you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And then likewise, I use that same, looking at the Beatitudes in Luke, and said, but I say unto you, and I'm sorry, Luke 6, verse 27. And I read a couple of those verses. Luke 6, and starting at verse 27, but I say unto you say unto you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. That's verse 27 and 28. The words that caught my attention there that I don't think we gained an understanding on was the word enemy, because I've been looking up enemy every place. It seems like it was used. It kind of said something a bit different. It means to fall out of rhythm. It means to hate. It means to wear a disguise, which I thought was interesting. And it even talks about controlling your resistance to change. So I wanted to get into that because I think an understanding of enemy really kind of opens this up. And I'm going to use the hidden gospel to do that, but I want to read some scripture first because this kind of helped me to see this. I want to, and again, I'm going to read a few verses here, but I'm talking about enemy, okay? I'm in Matthew 13, and I'm going to start at verse 24, and I'm going to read through verse 30. Matthew 13, starting at verse 24. Matthew 13, starting at 24. He presented another parable to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seeds in his field. But while men were sleeping, an enemy came and sowed tares also among the wheat and went away. But when the wheat sprang up and bore grain, then the tare became evident also. And the slaves of the landowner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tare? And he said to them, an enemy has done this. And the slave said to him, do you want us then to go and gather them up? But he said, no, lest while you are gathering up the tares, you may root up the wheat with them. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And in time, the harvest, I will say to the reaper, first gather up the tare and bind them in bundles to burn them up, but gather the wheat into the barns. Again, I'm looking at the word enemy here, and I want to, those verses we are familiar with, I know, and I read some of the definitions that I got for enemy. I want to read something from the hidden gospel that he mentions here that I think is kind of ties all of those definitions together. He says the enemy can mean an owner or head of a family. It comes from a root verb that means to disrupt or to inquire in a hostile manner. Figuratively, we can see that it is an aspect of self that up until now has controlled our inner territory and provided strategies that seem necessary for survival. Okay. Let me read another portion. Again, he says, enemy, the root of enemy implies to domination, power, pride, and to take things in access, such as one that swells outwardly from an inner void or lack. So, who is the enemy? What is this talking about here? In these parables this parable that I read, the enemy came by night. The enemy came in a time of confusion. The enemy is us, and let's look at that a little bit. because Pastor said something some years ago. He said, we were talking about not liking other people, and he said that there's something in you that you don't like that you see in them, and I could not wrap my mind around that. It took me some time to kind of accept that, or see it, not accept it, but to see it. And I see now what it's talking about. Now, if I use myself as an example here, over the course of my life, I've seen some stuff, and most of it, most of my hurts or pains have not involved me so much, but things I've seen done to other people. But starting from childhood and seeing things, I started building up this resistance. I started building up this protective shield. And this shield in me had a lot to do with race. So when something would happen, you add on and you add on and you add on to this thing. Well, at some point, you give it a face. You project a face to it. You project an image to it. There was an instant. You've probably heard me talk about this before. Back when the pandemic first came into, I think 2021, but this landlord cuts off this woman's lights and water because she couldn't pay her rent, and she had children, and that infuriated me. And the face I saw was very familiar. The face I saw was a white male, a European male. And it dawned on me that I don't know if that landlord was male or female. I did not know if the landlord was black, white, Republican, Democrat. It didn't matter. But based on my experiences in life, I had my image of what my enemy looked like. So based on what was in me, I projected this image. And there are times that, that without calling a bunch of names, I don't have to do that. That may look like a politician. It may look like a police officer. It may look like a bunch of things. But it is the seed that is in me that builds up this wall that is the enemy. And I project it to look like other people. And that's not to say that there weren't injustices done. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying, as Pastor said, those of us who have purposed our journey to see enlightenment and to walk into this transformation, this is one of the things that is extremely important to look at. The enemy that came by night, the enemy that came at the chaotic time, that came at the darkest hour, is the one that's been dominating us all our lives. He is the one that has seemingly gotten us out of trouble. He is the one that always presents itself first to us. As what were some of the words that I used to describe him? The head of family. He's the aspect that has control our inner territory. He provides strategies for survival. That has been comfortable to us. So when you stop and look at that and pay, look at what's in you, and I look at what's in me, we see that this thing that we have created, that is the enemy, is something we need to address. So does this make sense to you at all? And I feel like I'm skipping something, but does this make sense at all?
It does. I see exactly where you're coming from based upon the example you use. And of course, I've felt like that for quite some time. And that's pretty much what helped move my feelings, my emotions towards the people who are enslaved us, moved it from a place of resentment to a place of actually pity, because I pity anyone who lives who attempts to live in a vacuum in this life and miss the real joy of being able to interact with people, with people without having any resentment for them whatsoever. So I do clearly agree with and embrace what you.
Thank you, Pastor. Anyone else? Do you guys see anything else in this? Now, the enemy is extremely important. We were looking at this too from the perspective of seeing that in a spiritual world, in this spiritual journey, that there is no dichotomy. This is the start of this darkness, if you will, leads you to a place that it ignites a flame in you. So when we get to the place, because he says, let them grow together. Let them come up together. And what ends up happening, the burning of this becomes the fuel. It brings nitrogen to the ground so that it further fertilizes the soil or the earth. So you look at this and say, well, how does this apply to what you're saying, Ron? How does this apply? I recognize too that the enemy is me. All those times that I allowed myself to my feelings and emotions to control me, and not recognizing that was a defense mechanism, that was a way of protecting myself. But the whole time, this thing grew and grew and grew, and it built something in me. And it, if you think about it, it sounds kind of hard to defeat when you think about it from that perspective. Because if we're honest, I think most of us know what we're talking about here. But how do we combat this? How do we combat this? Jesus says to love your enemies. Now, that word love is not just talking about it is saying that going into yourself to a place that in the lower part of self, into your bowels, into that womb that you created, into that sacred place that you created. It is that point that you pay attention, or you look at this thing that you have called enemy, and you turn it into enlightenment. You turn it into love. And I'm not saying this is an easy thing, and I'm not saying this is something that we do in the flash of a minute. But it is only through love that we are able to unite with this thing and ignite it into something, that it becomes something that lifts us to another place of consciousness. And on that note, when you think about consciousness, because we think about consciousness and we talk about our awareness, when you take a real look at consciousness, though, you cannot talk about awareness without talking about darkness as well, because the two things go hand in hand. So what you are aware of is what reaches back or takes you to another place, to the next place, to show you what you are not aware of. So whatever place of consciousness that you are, consciousness is a living entity, and it takes you from place to place. You do not stay there. It is energy. So as we evolve in this thing, I see this hatred or this dark place in us, this enemy thing, dissolving as we desire to grow further. And it kind of goes in hand what we've talked about the last couple of days, that inner search that we did, looking at this and saying, this is my desire, I want this. So as we do that, the transformation dwindles that down further and further and further. And I'm not saying that it cannot happen in an instance, but I'm putting it this way so that we don't beat ourselves up. But the enemy is you. The enemy is those things that we allow to take form in us, to grow in us, that it has a purpose, and it has protected us and even dominated us from times up until now. But I hope this makes sense, because that word really kind of, I didn't understand it, and I wanted to. So I hope this brings a little clarity to love thy enemy.
Ron, the other thing about the word tares is that it helps to hold the soil in place. So
yes.
If the tear is there, it has a purpose. As you were saying, that which we think is not useful to us can have a positive purpose for us if we allow it to. And once it's served its purpose, push us, to thrust us, to encourage us to become even more aware of who we are, whatever that tear is in our lives. We don't have to let it control us. We don't have to let it, as you said something about it can cause you to swell up outwardly, and cause you to think about the image of yourself you once held. Well, the issue is you aren't, as you grow spiritually, you don't want to be bound by the image you once held. You want to be bound by the image of Elohim, and so that tear can help to keep the ground in place until you are ready, as you say, to harvest and move forward. And then that tear is, as you said, purposely burned and can be used for fodder for the soil itself. So everything has an opportunity, if you allow it to influence your growth.
Thank you. Beautifully said, because you're absolutely right. I'm looking at this. I had that written down about the hole in the soil, and I did not say it. I forgot all about it. That's why it takes all of us. Thank you. Thank you very much. The other thing you made me think of when you were talking, Barbara, was when S talked about our memory, because some of that memory doesn't seem to be positive. I won't say it's not always, all of it is positive. It doesn't seem to be positive. But in this case, as we're talking about, you see who you used to be. You see your growth. You see your transformation. So this is what propels us forward and keeps us going, especially when we may not have opportunities to call each other or talk to somebody. This is part of your meditation, to look at what being Elohim feels like, and what that transformation has done as we grow. And so again, to link it to the creation story, light and darkness is a dance, as Barbara talked about earlier. Looking at this, and there is no heaven without earth. There is no earth without heaven. This is talking spiritual things. This is talking about the vibrations and the rhythms of who we are. And the soil is talking about your awareness that is steady changing, the energy that goes forth. And so as we pull all this together, we have no negative parts. The darkness is there for a purpose. It is there for a purpose. And looking at that, when I say look at it, I'm just saying embrace it. We don't need to beat ourselves up. We don't need to be disappointed in what. Long as we have the desire to keep going forward and to see truth and get this right. That is the journey. So the love thy neighbor is the we are, as we speak, transforming and bringing in the new heaven and the new earth, bringing in more enlightenment, increasing the rhythms and the vibrations in the earth. So I'm glad this makes sense. And anyone else? Anybody?
So, Ron, you said the enemy is us, right?
Yes, sir. Does that
Okay.
make sense, Charles? And I'm you know, that example I used was for me, because I was trying to think of something that may be universal for most of us. Yeah, you know, one of the another example I gave Pastor was my mom was an RN for years, and when she got sick, a lot of the doctors that she knew over the years would come and see her in her room. And it was this one particular doctor that she liked, she used to talk about all the time. And when I met him, I thought him not to be very personable. You know, he wasn't cold, he was a very polite guy, but he a little standoffish, I guess, and not at all what I pictured him to be. And but it dawned on me that something, and this, what I think anyway, this man is a cardiologist that works with the elderly. Maybe that's his defense mechanism. Maybe that's what he has to do, because he's seen a lot of death. He's seen people that he may have gotten close to and have lost as patients and friends. And that might be how he protects himself now. That too is an example of what I'm talking about. This thing takes form in us because it seemed to be feeding on what we need at that time. And what we've done here lately is we are growing. And I say that because we're seeing this now. All the things that we're seeing now, I think we're seeing them because that's what we're ready for. So what this is saying to me is you no longer need that. It's time for you not only to move self forward, but to move the universe forward. Because the more you change self, the more you change mankind. Because don't think that people don't pay attention to this. Don't think that the energy is not changing in the atmosphere. So what we see along these lines will be seen with the eye, and not necessarily with the eyes, which might be what we are looking for, and that may not be the vision at all.
Yes, you're right. We're looking at it with the eyes, but we're not looking at it with the eye. Until you just said that, I just caught it. Because in that same verse I just said, enemy, it always said men, but if you change that men to you understand the enemy. Understand who the enemy is. It ain't no one out there. Everything is in you.
So
You said something, Charles, when you said that, talked about sinning with the eye instead of the eyes. You will not see with the eye if you cannot see with your eyes. This is what I'm saying. The eyes the eyes that you see with are not just the two eyes in your head. You also see with a smell. You can smell bread, and and you know it's bread. So that is a type of seeing as well. The key to it, I do believe, is this: seeing with your eye is the same as being able to read the signs of the times, or the signs of what's taking place in front of you. If all you can see with your eyes are those actions, hear with your ears are those words, feel in your body disappointment or uncertainty, then you cannot see with your eye, because those are distractions. Seeing with your eye is when you are able to look at or hear about an event that is disconcerting, rather than being angry, disappointed, or uneasy about it, rather than thinking, when is this going to end? The first thing to mind, what does this mean? Gives you opportunity to see with your eye. When the queen died, what does this mean? What does this mean? The resounding answer came by seeing with the eye. This ends colonism. This ends imperialism. This ends racism. The womb of the world that is inhabited and respected and endeared by Caucasians, that womb is now gone. So that is an example of being able to see with the eye. Look for meaning, but don't try to make it mean what you want it to mean. You will sense it, you will feel it, you will know it, you will experience it. Or if there are any questions or comments, please offer them. Thank you.
thank you, Pastor. Anyone? This conversation with the eye and the eyes just reminds me, there has been some time now we no longer talk about or even concern about tangible things, even on yesterday, other than family, which was, understandably the focus for a lot of people, especially moms. But we don't focus on tangible things like that anymore. It's spiritual. So yeah, when you look at this, when you talk about what would you give up or not give up, and again, you're not necessarily talking about cars and trucks and that kind of stuff. You're talking spiritually, and to look at this to this degree, and even as often as we talk about the difference of that spiritual eye, that inner vision that we have, is really priceless. And I think we are or have moved to the place where things are being experienced far more than they can be defined. So, yeah, just a thought, just a thought. But where are we? We okay? Any questions or comments? Anything about what Pastor said? Okay. Well, that's all I had. I was kind of focusing on enemy and hoping that made sense. Other than that, unless there are questions or comments, won't hold you any longer. Okay? Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate everybody on the line. And I really and truly hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Okay? Thanks again.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, my family.
Everyone.
Bye.
Have a good evening, everybody.